So the two women, Naomi and Ruth, arrive in Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest, with nothing but the clothes on their backs. They are the poorest of the poor. To survive, Ruth does the only thing she can. She goes to the fields to glean, to follow behind the harvesters and pick up the leftover scraps of grain that they had missed. It was a provision made in God's law for the destitute, but it was humbling, backbreaking work. And it is here, in this place of utter humility and desperation, that the unseen hand of Providence begins to move. By what seems like a coincidence, Ruth happens to glean in a field belonging to a wealthy and respected man named Boaz. And as it turns out, Boaz is a relative of Naomi's late husband. Boaz comes to his field and sees this foreign woman working diligently. He asks about her, and his workers tell him her story, of her incredible loyalty to Naomi, of how she left her homeland to care for her mother-in-law. And Boaz's heart is moved with compassion. He doesn't see a foreign outcast. He sees a woman of noble character. He approaches Ruth and speaks to her with incredible kindness. He tells her to glean only in his fields, to stay with his workers where she will be safe. He instructs his men not to bother her. He even invites her to drink from their water jars and share a meal with them. He goes above and beyond the requirements of the law, offering her not just provision, but protection, dignity, and grace. Ruth is stunned. She falls on her face and asks, "Why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner?" And Boaz's reply reveals the heart of the entire story. He says, "I've been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." In what small or large ways have you seen the coincidental hand of God's providence at work in your own life, perhaps through the unexpected kindness of another person? Share your experience in the comments. What Ruth doesn't yet fully understand is that Boaz is about to become the very answer to his own prayer. He is what was known in Israelite law as a kinsman redeemer. He was a relative who had the right and the responsibility to rescue a family member from hardship, to redeem their land, and even to marry a widow to carry on the family name. Naomi, whose hope begins to rekindle, devises a plan. She instructs Ruth to go to the threshing floor at night, a place of work and celebration, and to boldly but humbly appeal to Boaz to fulfill his role as her redeemer. In a dramatic and heartfelt nighttime encounter, Ruth says to him, "Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a kinsman redeemer." This was a beautiful and symbolic way of asking for his protection and his hand in marriage. Boaz, a man of absolute integrity, is moved by her character. He agrees, but there is one obstacle. Another relative is closer in line to redeem her than he is. True to his character, Boaz doesn't take shortcuts. The next day, he goes to the city gate, gathers the elders, and lawfully and honorably settles the matter. The other relative declines, and Boaz publicly declares his intention to redeem Naomi's land and to take Ruth as his wife. The story that began in famine and death ends in a wedding and birth. Ruth, the foreign widow, marries Boaz, the righteous redeemer. They have a son named Obed, who would become the grandfather of King David, placing this humble woman from Moab directly in the ancestral line of Jesus Christ. The story of Ruth is a profound illustration of God's redemptive love. It teaches us that our past does not define our future. Ruth was a foreigner, a widow from a people often seen as enemies of Israel, yet she was grafted into the very heart of God's salvation plan. It is a story that shows us that character is more valuable than comfort. Ruth's selfless loyalty and Boaz's quiet integrity became the threads that God used to weave his masterpiece. It reminds us that there is no such thing as a coincidence in the life of a person of faith. The field Ruth happened to choose, the kindness Boaz happened to show. It was all the work of a loving, sovereign God, guiding, protecting, and providing in ways they could not see. Maybe you feel like Naomi today, bitter, empty, and convinced that your story is one of loss. Or maybe you feel like Ruth, vulnerable, working in the margins, just trying to survive. Let this story be a beacon of hope to you. Your loyalty in the dark, your small acts of faith, your diligent work when no one seems to be watching. None of it is in vain. God is at work. Your Redeemer is near, and He is weaving your story of ashes into a beautiful tapestry of grace. If this story of love and redemption has touched your heart, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. Join us as we continue to discover the profound hope found in the most unexpected corners of the Bible. Have you ever felt lost? Not just lost on a map, but lost in the story of your own life. A moment when tragedy strikes, when the future you planned evaporates into thin air, and you are left standing in the ruins of your old life with nothing but ashes and a horizon that looks terrifyingly empty. In those moments of profound loss, it is so easy to believe that your story is over, that hope is a luxury you can no longer afford. But what if I told you that it is often in our deepest moments of emptiness that God is quietly setting the stage for our greatest redemption? What if your most painful ending is actually the birthplace of a beautiful new beginning? Today, we journey into one of the most tender, beautiful, and profoundly hopeful stories in all of Scripture. It is a story that unfolds not on a battlefield or in a king's palace, but in the quiet, dusty barley fields of Bethlehem. It is a story of two widows, a foreign woman with a loyal heart, and a righteous man of integrity. This is the story of Ruth and Boaz, a timeless saga of loyalty that defies loss, of redemption that restores what was broken, and of a divine providence that is always at work, weaving a masterpiece of grace even when all we can see are the tangled threads of our own pain. Our story begins in tragedy. A famine forces an Israelite family, a man named Elimelech, his wife Naomi, and their two sons, to leave their home in Bethlehem and seek refuge in the foreign, pagan land of Moab. But their refuge becomes a place of loss. First, Naomi's husband dies. Then, her two sons, who had married Moabite women, also die. And Naomi is left alone, a widow in a foreign land, with her two foreign daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth. Her heart is shattered. She is empty, bitter, and convinced that the hand of the Lord has turned against her. She decides to return to her homeland, to Bethlehem, and she urges her daughters-in-law to go back to their own families, to find new husbands and new lives. Orpah, with tears, agrees. It is the logical choice. But Ruth refuses. And in one of the most powerful declarations of loyalty ever spoken, she clings to her grieving mother-in-law and says words that have echoed through the ages. Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me. This is not just loyalty. This is covenant love. Ruth, a woman from Moab, an outsider, chooses to abandon everything she has ever known, her home, her family, her gods, to bind her fate to a bitter widow and an unknown God, based on nothing but love.